So the freight overview. You can see there by the figures, the freight activities contribute 66 billion to the New South Wales economy each year. The freight task is growing. 482 million tonnes of freight was moved in New South Wales in 2016. 28% of this to be moved in New South Wales by 2036. Freight is an important employer. 200,000 people are directly employed in freight transport in New South Wales, and 515,000 people are directly employed in the broader logistics industry. So they're pretty big figures. So as you can see from these numbers, it's rather big and it's critical to our communities. It is vital in supporting economic activity and also a direct contributor to the New South Wales economy. While these figures are drawn from the New South Wales Freight Ports Plan and are yet to be adjusted and incorporate post-COVID forecast assumptions, the headline remains the same in that we are still anticipating significant growth in freight across New South Wales and into the future. As population grows and change, we need to be planning for as well as managing the transport network in a way that best enables a safe, productive, sustainable, end-to-end movement of goods to and from our communities. Statistics are sourced from the Freight Ports Plan 2023, and of course, as I said, they're pre-COVID, so they'll adjust as time goes by. So the Farmgate Access. So Farmgate Access is a joint New South Wales Government, Local Council and Industry initiative designed to improve freight productivity by connecting first and last mile journeys to the farm gate. The network enables safe and legal access for high productivity vehicles travelling on low volume council roads, benefiting local farmers, businesses, participating councils and the communities. The New South Wales Government is committed to supporting local government to achieve the shared goal of heavy vehicle access and serve our local communities. Key benefits of Farmgate: enabling the use of more productive vehicles to safely transport grain and livestock from the farmgate to market, meaning fewer trips for the freight task. Reducing red tape for farmers and transport operators by reducing the need for access permits. Opening up more than 10,000 kilometres of local roads and participating council areas during the pilot period. And of course it's live now. Increasing visibility across councils' road networks using telematics and subscribing councils to the telematics analytics platform, so the TAP platform. So we've provided two reporting platforms to each council. So that allows councils to see from the report where vehicles under this Farmgate benefits are operating on their local roads. The future, data-driven decision making, supporting a resilient road network. A lot of people ask where are these trucks going when they're under a permit, under notice. We don't know, but with telematics we can start to see that picture. Technology innovation informing access. So we've got machine learning, cameras, we've got them on for those that travel on the Hume. We've got them on Sheen Bridge, which has allowed us to increase mass greater than 68.5 tonne, which has been there for many years. Automated number plate recognition. So those two work hand in hand to make sure that we've got the right vehicle over those accesses at the right time. Rail level crossing tool. As you know, we've got challenges with level crossings with signal timing and stacking. We've now got a rail level crossing tool which helps us build a strategic view of those level crossings and which ones we need to look at and prioritise. And a bridge assessment tool. So we've built a bridge assessment tool that will allow operators to essentially, if I can use the term respectively, play with dimensions, axle masses, axle spacings, and see what's going to be the sweet spot for the journey or the route that you need for the vehicle that you intend to build. It's not, it won't provide a definitive yes, that's the vehicle. It will give you a guide that instead of having to sort of put 2 or 3 or 4 in principles in, you can put 1 or 2 and then we'll review that and then provide a more definitive outcome. Again, we continue to partnership with local government. We've got interactive maps that continue to grow. We've just published the high productivity vehicle map under notice, which has now got, most importantly, the 3 Victorian A-double reference vehicles, and providing real-time access decisions for our customers. And that's it for me. Any, I don't know if you want to do questions now, Melanie, or we just wait for the panel? We're
going to go at the end, Brent.
Okay.
So they're good conversation questions. So remember to use your Slido if you've got a question that pops up. I'm going to hand you over to Trent now from NHVR to give us the national perspective. Trent's the Senior Access Facilitator at NHVR. I'll go and get your slides.
Yeah, great.
Yep. All right, everyone need that?
Just while the slides come up. So I'm a senior access facilitator in the access team, been with NHVR coming up to 4 years. So I've been there quite some time, seeing some improvements, as we'll see on the slides, increase in volume as well. So I'm going to cover quickly, I've got 5 minutes, so I won't go into too much detail. The monthly volume, you can see the increase in the trend. The access permits to date, that's back to 2015. End-to-end times, so how it sits with us, customers and road managers. And then also the NHVR contact centre, that's now in-house, and how that's been improved and trends with that, and then upcoming improvements over the next 12 months hopefully. So as you can see there, kind of trending upwards over the last, over 2 years. That grey gold line, I guess, is our flexible capacity, so we've got additional funding to kind of keep up with the applications we're receiving. That grey line, dotted line, is our base capacity. So you can see without the extra staff, we wouldn't be able to process that number of applications. But yeah, we're still maintaining that quite well. That little grey snippet at the end is the forecast for the end of the month to today. There's reports from last week. So this is kind of the picture from the start of the NHVR access permits. So from 2015 to 2022, this is back to May, so 1 month short. We're in process 131,700 applications, on track to do 145,000 this financial year. As you can see down the bottom, that's an increase of 841% from when we first started, but we've only increased our resources 59%. So with that comes improvements in the system, road managers obviously coming on board, and their education as well. So yeah, it's quite a big improvement, and that's obviously trending to go up still, but hopefully with the improvements coming and the new notices, Farmgate, that kind of stuff, that number will start to go down soon. And with that applications going down, we can focus on our turnaround times. So the blue down the bottom is with the NHVR, so how long it takes to process the application and permit at in the end. Orange is the customer, so information requests, that kind of thing. And then grey, you can see also trending down, is time with road managers. Obviously they're having to do the assessments and that kind of thing. So everyone's coming to the party, we're all kind of trending in a downward direction, which is good. Get permits faster. This is the contact centre, so it's been about 12 months they've been on board now. So you can see that the orange bars are their first core resolution, which is what they're striving for. That gold yellow line across is their target, so they're well exceeding that, and that's easier for us. They're not putting calls through to us so we can process applications, but it also goes through to PBS and receiving phone calls, and everything we're kind of doing for the customers we can do because the contact centre is resolving those calls first time. And the customer satisfaction, again, well above 4.9%. Target looks like it's 4. So yeah, they're doing very well. They're focusing more on education of customers or people calling up, so that they don't have to call back another time to try and find the same information. They're actually learning where they need to go. This is the speed of answer. It's probably not an amazing stat to kind of show you, but kind of put it in perspective. So they're taking, 20 seconds on average to answer a call in June. That line at the top, that light blue line, is the Australian average for all contact centres. So they're exceeding that by quite a lot. So that is including hold time and that kind of thing. So 20 seconds is pretty good for the number of calls they take. They take about 220 to 250 calls a day, 300 on crazy days. So it's pretty good. And finally, some coming improvements. So the next generation route planner is live at the moment. There is some teething issues with that, and we recognise that. We're working with the developers to improve that and kind of move forward and make it to what we want it to be, what it was always intended to be. It's an intelligent routing tool for operators and people to see where they can go rather than where they can't go, and yeah, that kind of thing. And see where networks will be, or heat maps of what's been approved, what's been rejected, to save time, time and money. Obviously, if you're going to apply for a road that's been refused 20 times, you'd prefer to know that beforehand rather than find out in 28 days. And pre-approval automation is a big one, a big project over the next 12 months that we're aiming to do. So that's the system recognising the vehicle that's been applied for, and then cross-referencing that against the pre-approval that's been submitted by councils or state or jurisdictions, applying them automatically, because like the number of applications we get and the time frames we have to process it in, it's kind of easy to see human error can come into it, and we might miss one or two. That wastes road managers' time. Pre-approval automation is the way to go moving forward, and that's going to save us an estimated 15% of our processing time. So again, bringing those turnaround times down even further. But no, that's it. That's it from me. Yeah, we'll do questions at the end. Okay.
Thanks, Trent. So now we're going to have a look at the local council perspective, I guess, in terms of heavy vehicle access. So I asked the engineering directors to put together a bit of a list of the sort of common challenges or constraints, risks that stop us from having those A+ gold standard roads all across every bit of the network, like Steve was talking about in the last session. So this isn't by any means the extensive list, but these are some of the big, I guess, conversation starter type questions that you might want to have a think about. These are the things you want to quiz us about while we've got the 3 engineering directors here in the room. Things like resourcing, things like the availability of contractors to be able to help us to do works, competing projects, funding, budget, expectations of the community to have those A+ roads, supply of materials, pavement failures. We've had a lot of rain. So these are the sort of things that are happening, I guess, at the local level that might be impacting our ability to deliver freight projects. Happy with that? Cool, right. I'm going to go with, I think they're in order, so Parks is first. So this is Ben Howard, the Director of Operations at Parks. I'll go and get the slides ready. There's your pointer.
Thanks, Mel. Just while Mel's bringing up the slides, I guess I do know a lot of you, but I'm Ben Howard, Director of Operations at Parks Council. I've been at Parks for about 14 years, so I guess with the presentations that we've seen already and the challenges, I've seen some significant improvements and across the telemetry and innovation, but also seen the increase in the freight demand. I guess just at a high level, so council, what are we doing? So we obviously we started at a freight strategy level. You're probably asking why. I've got a map of Australia there. Our freight strategy is not just road transport, it's also air transport. We have an RPT service out of Parks, and then we've also got the inland rail, so that's just to provide a bit of context there. So we've got a long-term road improvement program, so that's 20 years, focuses on 10-year projects and then also 5-year projects, but basically it then sort of synergises with the 4th dot point there about funding and future asset improvements. So basically without a plan in place, we don't know what we're applying for, so that's what that 5 and 10-year program identifies. Secondly, it identifies the project priorities, lengths of road, are we upgrading sealed networks, are we upgrading unsealed networks, are we upgrading flood immunity, causeways, and then other access at the first and last mile. Broader network linkages, so as I mentioned, we've got the Newell that runs through Parks, so what's those connections? We've got a lot of freight coming in our shire, probably 80% of our shire is on the western side of the Newell. We've got the receival site on the eastern side of the Newell, which obviously is then bordered by the Newell, so some linkages and some challenges and opportunities there as well. Efficiency and immunity, I guess I just touched on that, but obviously in my time at Parks we've seen road trains increase. I guess the Newell probably 2 years ago was a 19 metre semi-trailer and a B-double, 23 metre B-double, and then it went to permits, which you probably saw a few tankers using the Newell, and then now we're into open access, so what those constraints look like across council. So how do we get to that? And I guess the rest areas that you've all spoken about, breakdown areas, and then also where you can decouple, because obviously the challenges that we see across, and no doubt the other directors will talk about it, is we're not all open access at our 3 councils, so how do you as operators, and how do we make it easier for you as operators, so that when you're coming in from north, south, east or west, that you don't have to continually break down and decouple. And then lastly but not leastly, like the core business, so I guess probably 2,200 kilometres of road in parks alone. 1,500 kilometres of that is unsealed. Just going through financial implications at the moment. Basically, I can grade one or every road in parks once a year, but I would require an additional $1 million in my current unsealed maintenance budget. So where does that come from? Does it come from libraries? Does it come from pools? Does it come from the airport? And they're the challenges that councils have to face. So, as Steve said, I'd love to be able to grade every road, resheet every road every 5 or 10 years, but just those funding limitations. So where are we seeing some investment? So again, from the freight corridors, just at a high level. So there's about $39 million here for next year's capital program for parks alone. That's not including our standard Roads to Recovery program at the bottom, which is an allocation that's set across. But what we are doing this year with Roads to Recovery is we are putting it into road rehabilitation and renewals. So for the last 10 years or so at council, it's been spent on widening narrow sealed sections of road and improving the freight network. However, what we've seen in the past is opening up some of those unsealed road accesses, bringing up the minimum widths, because we are going to participate in the Farmgate program. So we need to have some money available so that we can improve our assets. But as you can see there, so $39 million, a couple of local roads in parks, Currajong Street and East Street, to improve productivity as well and efficiency heading to the east and to the south. The Bogan Way project, probably more aligned with this location, so $15 million from the Forbes boundary in the south right through to Tullamore. That's across 7 stages and is currently underway at the moment. Another big one, Roads of Strategic Importance, so that was a federal government program, and we're working, and I guess successes across 2 councils. Cabonne Council was successful as well. We've picked up 14.5, and I think they've picked up about 16 to improve access across there. And then mainly Majinkable Silos, which I'll just touch on as well. The access constraints for everyone that carts in and out of Majinkable, to say is lacklustre, would be the least. It only just caters for a 19-metre semi-trailer, let alone an AB triple. So we're looking at some upgrades there. It is on a regional road, but again, council's taken the initiative that we have to do something. So we're working with the industry partners on how we can improve that. And then finally, just the partnerships that I've touched on a couple of times. So we work closely with our neighbours, so all of our neighbouring councils, so that we can make sure that what that dot point, the first 2 dot points there, the Transport Priority Matrix, so that's a joint organisation across Centrox. So basically that was incepted a number of years ago so that what my priorities align with Forbes' priorities in the south or Lachlan's priorities in the west. So that basically I wasn't upgrading road networks that then hit the boundary, that then weren't a priority into the neighbouring shires. So the Transport Priority Matrix has really identified some of those freight corridors and strategic projects. We work with state and federal departments, obviously the NHVR and the other regulators around our permits. We're sitting at an average of between 2 and 7 days for our permits at the moment. But probably on the first slide, Mel mentioned about resourcing. We are struggling with internal staff at the moment, which is sort of pushing that out to the 7 days at the moment. And then probably the big partner, Transport, so we've been working with them on the bypass project at the moment, really working on how, so there was a decoupling bay on the western side of Parks, making sure that was in their plans. It wasn't in the plans for the temporary roads or the alternate roads, so we pushed really strongly for that. So on the new road that's been built parallel with the bypass, which will become Hardigan Avenue, that's got a decoupling bay, so that the one that's on Condo Road will move to that Hardigan Avenue. And as I mentioned, we will be participating in the Farmgate. We were in the trial program, and then obviously also road safety, so probably a push out to Mel. We do work across Mel's programs, such as what we hear today, to increase visibility on the road safety aspect. And then industry, as I mentioned, working with GrainCorp for the Majinkable Silos access, the Farmers Federation, they're an active member on our Rural Roads program, and our advisory group. So we have an external group that has input into our roads program, and that consists of bus operators, Farmers Federation, councillors and staff. And then we also talk to them about obviously opportunities and developments. And just on that last one for information for the locals is we're just currently working with the Transport Freight Branch and Council on reopening the Welcome Street access, which is south of McDonald's. So Grenfell Street for the locals, is the state network, but for this coming harvest we're looking at opening up the southbound lane as a trial to try and alleviate some congestion and pressures at the Grenfell Street and Bogan Street, which is the new highway access, and just in the southbound, so that anyone heading west and south can kind of slip down the bottom side of McDonald's, and we're going through the consultation phase of that at the moment. But that's it for me at the moment. Thanks, Mel.
Thanks, Ben. Richard's next. So Richard Jane is the Director of Engineering here at Forbes. There you go, Richard.
Thanks, Mel. Anyway, I'll kick off because rather than repeat what Ben was just saying, we've got a lot of similar strategies about the plans that we have in place to improve freight access. We've been looking at particularly our bridges. We've got a lot of Bailey bridges across Forbes Shire, which was an initiative 30 odd years ago, it might have been longer, to try and get crossings. The trouble with the Bailey bridges is they're not substantially timber, and both the federal and state timber bridge replacement programs require them to be substantially timber to get funding for them. So we're nagging both state and feds to expand the definition so that we can get those replaced. A couple that we're looking at was Straney's Bridge and Ledgers Malloy was the other one that we're trying to get across the line. They've been rejected twice already, but we're not going to give up. The good news is that we did get funding for Bumbogan Bridge on the North Condobolin Road and also Mafeking Bridge on Merinya Road. So over the next 12 months you'll see those two get replaced. One of our focuses is to get a lot of the traffic onto the Newell Highway via the Lachlan Valley Way, so getting them south to the river, because Lachlan Valley Way is already a road train route. Yeah, so that's a pretty big focus. As far as other funding goes, we got $1.7 million for Yarrabandi Road. We've started work on that, and we would have been finished, but it rained. And it rained, and it rained. So we're chipping away at that one. We also got 655 for Bajerrabong Road to do similar sort of works. Last year we spent nearly $1 million on Merinya Road, so I imagine most of you would have seen the impact that that made. The roads are of strategic importance, which Ben spoke about. We are not directly involved with that, but Transport providing a deviation is probably the best description for the Iron Bridge, and that will connect with a T intersection with the Escort Way. Now on Monday coming, Steve Lunn and myself are meeting with Transport staff. It's probably the first in maybe a 10-year view to have an eastern bypass of Forbes, so hopefully our initial discussions will get things moving there. On top of that, we've got our normal gravel resheeting, resealing program. We also got flood damage. The November flood that we had caused a lot of damage, and I think we're going to get around about $6 million for that flood damage. And I suspect it'll take us a good 2 years to get through all that work. Like Ben, and I'm sure Adrian's the same, struggling to get staff at the moment. They seem to be poached by contractors, whether it's the Parks Bypass, and keeping in mind that we've got a lot of works coming up with the Inland Rail as well. The passing loop at Darugaby will be happening about this time next year. We've got a little bit of work there to do on our northern bypass, which was originally built for road trains, and the reason it's not road train loaded at the moment is because ARTC wouldn't allow us to put road trains over the railway crossing, because it's just stop signs at the moment. But they're going to upgrade it to boom gates and lights. Once that's done, we'll be able to open that all up to road trains. I think what else was on my slide. I think that's about it. Steve, there's nothing else. Oh, yesterday, big announcement. We got $10 million from the state government to go towards an industrial park. It's an extension of the existing industrial park that we have just near our sale yards there. So big announcement only yesterday. And that's in addition to $4 million that the feds have given us. So big development there. In the same announcement, they said they were giving us $3.5 million for an equestrian centre, which is not really freight related, but we're pretty excited about that anyway.
We just want to discuss the topic earlier this morning about putting some of that rubble in the base of some of those big potholes.
Yeah, we've found, and anyone that's travelled down Littles Road, or I actually drove through Woolshed Road yesterday and Forest Road, there's a few of those around the place. Edels Road's another one. Kerbu Lane is another one, where there's just been water lying there for 6-7 months. And we understand that you've got to get heavy vehicles in and out. So what we're planning to do is put a lot of this rubble in the bottom, which is shot rock, basically, sort of the size of your fist. We're also introducing a program as part of our gravel resheeting. We're going to put in a number of triple cell 600 pipes, and we can do that because the head walls become standard. We just buy the head walls and put them all together. So those areas where there's gravel causeways and water lies there for months and months on end, the water will lie there in the pipes and you just be able to get through without driving through water. So we're planning to do around about 3 of those per year over the next several years, just to try and fix some of those areas where the water just lays for, at the moment we're up to about 7-8 months of water laying in these causeways. And they're everywhere. We'd have 50 or 60 of them just across Fallshire. Okay, can't think of anything else. So I'll hand over to Adrian.
I was coming back to tell them who you are. Unless you want to do it.
I don't mind.
I'm very sorry, Richard, that the slides haven't come through, but I can forward them out to everybody on the email. Adrian, our last director, is from Lachlan Shire Council. He's the Director of Infrastructure Services. There you go.
Yep.
There's the slide thingy.
Thanks very much, Mel. Much the same as the other 2 directors, we've been having some significant issues with wet weather. Our local road network has been severely impacted and remains impacted. We are getting round to the most problem spots where we can, but even getting our machinery there is causing more damage than what we're fixing. So a lot of our efforts in the last 12 months have been in the capital grants and investments that and the grant opportunities that we've had. Our key freight strategies have been investing in key freight routes to improve safety, improve access and freight efficiencies throughout the network. We've been trying to maintain our existing assets as much as we can, but we're still having trouble sourcing enough funds to even keep up with our gravel resheeting program to meet community expectations. And again, we're struggling to resource our reseal budgets. So it's easy enough to get grants to build new roads, but to maintain existing ones is a problem. We have a number of betterment projects, we're calling them, which is increasing flood immunity on some key freight networks. Just south of Condobolin, we're installing some large culverts, which is going to give us, it's going to maintain access between West Wyalong and Condobolin and the surrounds to even a 1 in 20 year flood. We're also exploring opportunities for intermodal connectivity. We're trying to push the barrow of the Inland Frail and Parkes' SAP and looking for a spur line and improved intermodal connectivity out from the eastern side of Condobolin. So, these are the list of the capital works. Now, I don't want to compare sizes of packages with the other directors, but these are some of the key projects. 30 kilometres worth of widening and resealing on the Bogan Way. And I'll take the point before of not a lot of roadside stops for trucks between Albert and Tullamore. There is only 2. and even those could do with some improving. Tourist precinct, that's just to the south side of Condobolin, that's the Utes and the Paddock precinct. We're including a heavy vehicle parking bay for trucks and long vehicles in that space to provide some overnight parking there for those trucks who like to go between Hillston and Newmundry and miss the Newell Highway. Mentioned the flood betterment. Nerrathong Bridge, it's a narrow bridge just to the south of Condobolin. It's only 6.5 metres wide, and when you get two AB triples passing each other on that bridge, it can get pretty hairy. So we've secured some funding to replace that bridge with a much wider one. So that's happening in the next 12 months. The design's just being finalised now. We have done a couple of seal extension projects on the local road network. This is not something that there's going to be a lot more of. We're focusing on gravel resheeting where we can rather than seal extension. Now, I know that's not popular with a lot of locals, but the reality is it's much more expensive to maintain the black stuff than it is to gravel resheet. So we're investing in those key freight routes where it does deserve to have that seal, but in general there's not a lot of seal extension work progressing in the next 10 years. Also working on the Maitland Street bypass just to the north of Condobolin, which requires a level road works with Transport for New South Wales and also ARTC. That's a long-standing project that will need a bit more work, but we're pushing for them to progress that. And there's a few other little projects there. This is the landscape architect's view of the heavy vehicle parking at the Utes and the Paddock. You can see that the cars and the RVs are separated from the heavy vehicles. We've got a visitor information centre there that's being built right at the moment, and there's plenty of space to walk around, stretch your legs. There will be toilet stops and showers there for those who wish to take advantage of that. There's also going to be a dog run for those caravanners that take their dog with them, and plenty of space to walk around down by the river there as well. And there will be a footpath link from this facility through to the caravan park and then through to the main parts of town. So that's an aerial photo of the site about 3 months ago. You can see the water there is playing a bit of havoc, but we're trying our best. It's starting to take shape anyway. And that was a photo of about 3 weeks ago. We're just getting the slab ready for the visitor information centre site. So there's enough room for about 13 Type A road trains there, and 4 caravans and RVs, and about 30 cars. So look forward to the day when that's full.
Will there be an effluent dump there for the dogs that have to play
in? I did skip over it, but we are also doing a heavy vehicle truck wash bay. There it is. Heavy vehicle truck wash bay along the Maitland Street bypass. We did consider putting facilities there for the heavy vehicle effluent dump points, but we didn't think that had matched too well with the tourism type facility that we're looking to put there. So we're discouraging stock trucks and putting them towards the Maitland Street part of town. So
Does the washout bay still work at the condo sale yards? Is it still operating?
that's the one that we're upgrading. So we've tripled the size of the effluent pond there. We've just put a new slab down to handle the larger vehicles. We are still going through some issues with water pressure there, but yeah, we haven't exactly finished. We'll commission it and get it up and running properly very soon. So, yep. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Nothing on Slido, no one wants to ask a question, so we'll do the old school. Wayne.
Sorry, man.
Who should I give this to? Which one do you want?
This can apply to everybody to make a comment, because I think it's a bit of an elephant in the room. Everyone knows right now, the Newell Highway even is amazing how it's falling to bits. Wet weather, but we do get wet weather, and we'll get runs of wet years, and things are highlighting. 2 questions, I suppose, or thoughts around that. And personally, when you look at what happens with roads and patching and maintenance, and I'm not blaming, I know funding's a big problem, I really do question the quality of some of the material that's put underneath the roadworks for patching, because they don't last. It might not only be that, it might be the process and it's done a little bit quick because pressure's on to get them done quick. But, you know, I was just talking to Ben, there's a little bit been done on one of our roads and within a week there's a great hole in it again. Now that's a costly exercise. But the one I think that really needs looking at, and I've heard it from within the industry, not that I'm in the industry as such, but I've been involved for a long time with it, is really just how much damage are airbags doing to our roads. Airbags is not a very good suspension. It's great for weight, saving of weight and everything else, but you talk to even engineers, there seems to be some significant issues arising from everything on airbags. And you've only got to look at patches of roads that are declining because they're in a bad, wet area or something. And you'll virtually see the black marks, bang, 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 for quite a distance. And I'm just wondering whether all the representatives of our shires, which are handling this all the time, maybe they need to ask the question of industry and get them to look at, are airbags an issue that everyone seems to think they could be, or maybe it's just a fallacy?
Who was it first?
Yeah, one, I couldn't agree more about the airbags, and I have heard it from industry as well. The road-friendly suspension seemed to be a great idea at the time. Everyone defaulted straight to airbags when it first came out, but the mechanical road-friendly suspension is definitely better, there's no question. Particularly on gravel roads, you can see it yourself. So, yeah, I guess it's up to the truck manufacturers to lean more towards the mechanical road-friendly suspension, because it causes a lot of damage. And when you think about it, all the bags are connected, so if one's under pressure, it pushes the pressure to the other side, pushes those wheels down, and you get an obviously very pronounced impact on the road itself.
Brett, did you want to say anything about airbags?
I would suggest that we give Les a bit of a heads up before he dials in, because he's our engineer and he's our PBS expert. He might be able to be in a better position to
I will text him now.
just for those technical questions.
Tim's doing it right now.
Okay, there you go.
Under the current HML requirements, we're pushed into a situation where we have to run airbags. My preference would be not to have airbags. They're very costly to maintain. We're constantly fixing airbags. Hate them, but that's a situation we're pushed into to run HML.
Is the mechanical a better option then, instead of airbags, mechanical road friendly to get HML? Is that?
We're not permitted to run it under HML.
There's no HML mechanical suspensions available on the market. The other big thing though that happened at the same time is that when HML basically came out, it prevented, or it moved the almost entire industry away from super single tyres to dual tyres, and the initial incomplete work that was done on pavement studies for dual tyres assumed that dual tyres were always evenly pressurised, when the reality is they're often not. The NHVR has funded about nearly $500,000 over the last 12 months into researching pavement damage on dual tyres versus super single tyres, and the actual physical testing work has been completed now, and the report is coming out probably in the next few months, but obviously on the data analysis that the NHVR is going to do. Les will talk more about that, but that was probably the bigger thing that actually happened, was the move to super single tyres at the time away from, move to dual tyres away from super single tyres. Probably caused more damage than the suspension itself.
Oh, Steve, come on.
Thanks, Mel. My question's for the NHVR, and I've been banging on about this since 2016. Interesting to see that the figures of applications for assessment for consideration are up around 14,000 now. NHVR gets a fee. We do the assessment. There's the bloke sitting there in the high vis, Michael. We get zero. We do it. It's cost shifting of the highest order. And I've said to Sal all the way along, we'll work with you in partnership while you get this bedded in, but it's time for some money to flow to us at council, because I've got an engineer sitting there doing your work for you. It takes him an hour and a half sometimes to do some of the more complicated applications. So please take the message back.
Yeah, thank you. I'll pass it on to my manager and she can run up the chain.
Hands in the air. Yeah. I know you're nice and loud, but this works for the video.
A few months ago, before this wheat harvest came up, we haven't had a wheat harvest for a couple of years, and then 20 we had one. And we all went to work. We all had AB triples were first halfway through harvest. I let to go into Parks, and we made the best of that. We I think Parks took a record amount of grain for that year, and I caught up with Chris before harvest just gone 21 and said, look, we're having a huge issue with access. I just talk about Forbes because I'm in the area, and Parks as well. A huge impact on access for road trains, AB triples. You look at the NHBR map, at the end of the day, if the Highway Patrol or RMS pull us up to fine us for being off route, they look at that NHBR map. End of the day, that's it. Unless you've got a bit of paper that's specifically saying on the road, you're in the wrong. So a lot of the farmers didn't realise until I pointed it out, and they're all on site, they need it open. There's only a couple of roads in Forbes that you can legally drive a B-double on, let alone anything else. So we need this fixed before a simple accident happens where a truck's just gone off route to deliver his load because there's nowhere, not even a parking bay to sleep, going back to the old one, there's nowhere to unhook. And if you do unhook and it sinks, it becomes a safety issue. And also, you go into that farm, and you come out and you do your thing, not doing anything wrong, and a simple act of someone doesn't look and pulls out in front of you and you hit them, we're in the wrong. For the simple fact of the road isn't open, and I'm sure if we put a permit in, like I've got quite a few permits in now, and everyone in the Shire has been awesome. Yep, all the permits are there, right, to go through. But what's the need? Lachlan Shire, as soon as you hit the Lachlan Shire, whether it's at Coronella, halfway to Condo, anything, it's just in that green slather. Like, as soon as you're there, you're open. Fair enough, we can't go over the bridges, understandable. The bridges aren't rated to receive like an 85-tonne Grossing road train or a 105-tonne AB triple, right? But so, and turning accessibility and all that, it shouldn't really matter. Like an AB triple will go around these traffic lights as good as a speed double. I've proved it 100 times. All of them routes are there. 90% of the farmers own a road train out there, and they're not legal to have it on the road. So this is it's gone too far, and it's been years of it, and nothing's happening. Whether it goes above or it's at the council or above level, I don't know. But it's just it keeps going in the same circle. Whether there's farm access, I don't know if Forbes Shire or Park Shire is part of it officially yet. If that farm access solves all the problems, well and good, we're in front, we're having a win. But at the moment, we've since 16 we've had meetings and all that, and we just don't seem to be getting anywhere. Little bits and pieces are happening, but it's becoming to a point, it's more than just a better access to stop the truck drivers mentioning. It's the point, if there is an accident, every member is insured, covered, and everything's safe. And if it's a tragic accident, you're not worried about someone not being covered. It's to the point where there's a couple of narrow channel crossings, and they say, oh, we can't have road trains pass on it. You can't have semis pass on it, so that's a pretty ordinary excuse. You can't have a semi pass, I can't even have a ute and truck pass on it. So it should be only one vehicle at a time, you know. It doesn't matter if you've got 2 or 3 trails behind you, it's the same rules. So, you know, is there any way we can get some traction in that?
Directors.
Yes, I'll just start on that. The map for the NHBR in the future, that's the extra map plan I was talking about, will be the legal enforceable network, hopefully in the next 2 years, say. Don't hold into that, but that's the plan to move forward. I'll pass it on.
Anyone that was at the LBRCA conference in Wagga a few years ago would have heard me talk about this very issue. And bottom line, everything goes really well until there's an accident. And we go off to the coroner's court. Now, in some cases, they have years to dissect what happens over a few seconds. Now, are they going to blame the road? Almost certainly. And that's why I've taken a fairly firm stand and said that we have to assess each road, and our phones, the eyes turn on, And if people want any particular roads assessed, Michael here, he's even done the right thing and bought a fluoro jacket.
So you can find him.
Now he's either just had or about to have some, just been?
Next week.
Next week, there you go. Specialist training on, there's a document called the Route Access, what's it called then?
Restricted access.
Vehicle Route Assessment Guidelines, that's it, yeah. It's a very rigid process where even fairly minor roads, the ones that might serve 3 or 4 properties, whatever, we assess those. And look, when I get to the coroner's court and I'll probably put myself and Michael in the witness box and say, did you assess this road or not? And you know what lawyers are like? It's a yes or no answer. And if we say no, it comes back to us. And I said at the LBRCA thing, I don't expect anyone in that room to put their livelihood on the line for me, and in turn I'm not going to do it for you. So, the answer is, talk to this guy, get those roads assessed, and they either will or they won't get over the line. I would confidently say most of them will, but we're not going to open them up until they're assessed. I also invite you to join our Freight Focus group. I see Neil sitting down the back there. He's one of our active members and a very good one too also. Has provided us with a list to Michael to have a look at. We won't be doing blanket approvals. It's just plain not going to happen. But we will if you give us a number of routes and you prioritise them, tell us, and we won't do it road by road. We'll say, what's your route, start point, end point, and we'll do all the roads in between. And yeah, we're gearing up to do those, I won't say en masse, because we'll probably need Mel Suter to help us. And we've got another guy on staff as well who will be there to get those done, because we're very keen to open them up, but we're not going to do it unless it's done properly and safely. And when you think about the demographics of who uses our local roads, the gravel roads, is it the farmers? Well, they don't need to go to work, they already live there. It's the off-farm income, which is usually the wives, who are teachers, accountants, doctors, solicitors, whatever, go to town, kids in the school buses. So mostly it's the women and the kids that are using the roads. And they're up against very big trucks.
So, Richard, are you talking about gazetting roads or just pre-approving them?
Whatever's easiest.
A pre-approval means they still need to have a permit, because that'll open access.
Look, and maybe that's the first step. I would like to have them, I think there's a step below fully gazetting them where you just don't need to apply for a permit, but I'll be able to tell me about that or not. But look, I'll use Backham Road as an example, where last year, and I did actually all the work myself, it is now rated for 36.5 metre road trains, and when you put in the application for that, you've got to list every combination that's possible. So I did PBS Type 2, Type 2B, huge fan of PBS Type 2B. I think that's the future of freight in this area. PBS Type 3, and I wish they'd all come under the PBS thing, but they don't currently. So you've got to have 36.5 metre A doubles, you've got to have B triples, and you've got to list all, and there's I think 10 or 12 of them that you've got to list just put in, and Backham Road as an example where we had to do that. So it's not an easy process. That was thoroughly assessed. Mel was on the assessment team. And that's what I plan to do for any route that you guys come up with that you think is important. Let's do it properly so that when we do appear in the coroner's court, we can say we assessed that properly.
So is this something we'd come to you direct for, or should we go through NHBR?
You can come direct to us.
Yep.
And we'll do the assessment. Obviously we've got 2 guys and Mel as a backup as well to help us with all that. So, yeah. Nils has already given us a number of routes, I think 5 or 6, and we'll get those done as soon as we get this training finished next week.
So none of this would come under the last mile access like the livestock like Kara's talked about, because because most of these roads we aren't travelling through, because all the roads we have to travel through are already so-called permitted. It's the ones like to get to, say, the Mount Feedlot or all them farms out towards Coronella until you hit the Lachlan Shire. Like, there's a lot of farms out there that get serviced and all that sort of thing, and out through Jerrabong, to say, Ian Brockman was here this morning, his feedlot, for argument's sake. Technically, he doesn't got access either. So them sort of things we sort of wonder, you know, a lot of feed comes in from the Condo area to that. Yeah.
Well, to me, the feedlots are the low-hanging fruit, because the freight routes are the same every time, pretty much, aren't they? They don't change very much, so let's get them done. But you need to tell us what the routes are, because I'll do one thing about this farmgate access program with the telematics being mandatory, is we will then know where the trucks are coming and going. But it'll be interesting to see the take-up on that, because even though it's de-identified information on that telematics, it'll be interesting to see who actually takes that up.
So Parks is in Farmgate, so can we get a Parks take on how that works, I guess, with telematics?
Yeah, well, I guess just to go back a step, thanks for the question, Dan. Richard mentioned it, I guess, years ago it came back to a risk-based approach. It was as simple as that. And look, Adrian probably wasn't at Condo at the time when that decision was made, probably it was 30 years before that. So they made their decision. Our council tried to work on it for a number of years with transport. So there used to be this delineation, and I guess it was whether it was a fact or fiction, but it was the Newell, and we were trying to get it back. So basically anything west of the Newell would be open access. We worked with transport for a number of years to try and get that, but again, no one would formalise it or document it and then say who was the ownership for that risk base. So we did go into Farmgate. We went into Farmgate trial number 1 with Brett and his team back in 2017, 2018, I guess. And that was back when we kind of undertook the similar process that Richard's talking about. So we would get an application, we would go and use the tool, which was an assessment tool, and then open up the access. Funnily enough, whether we didn't consult or have a wide enough consultation process, we didn't have a great uptake from industry. I think over the 8 months or 9 months of the trial, I think we only had 6 applications for the whole period. But that was a lesson from us. We kind of came in late into the second round trial, which is where the telematics came in. But we can already start to see the benefits of it. I guess the risk and challenge for us, and we'll take it offline and talk to Brett about it later, but as Richard said, what about those that don't have telematics? So, once they see a truck going down there, they'll think that it's open access. So how do we mandate and how do we ensure that we work with agencies? There's no weight of loads group anymore. That I used to work at another council that had weight of loads that could mandate that, and it's not the big operators and the smart operators, that are the sophisticated operators that are doing it, but there's the odd ones that once they see a truck they'll creep down. So hopefully we'll start to see some benefits and open up access by us being in the Farmgate process.
Brett, do you want to say anything about Farmgate?
I think we've sort of covered it. It is designed, I think the key thing, it's designed for low volume roads. So it's mentioned a couple of times today about the assessment process, and I think a key element of that is risk. So our approach is that and it was mentioned before, there's already a freight task. There's already a vehicle doing a freight task now. And in my presentation, you can see the growth of the freight task. I bet it's going to be another bumper season. So it is a file that's a delicate process that we go through. But do you take into consideration, 100, 150, 200 vehicles moving a freight task that's growing, or can we reduce that by a higher productivity vehicle? So you're reducing the task. And then, as I said, in Farmgate, it's generally only certain vehicles going in. It's not a throughput freight task, and it's only seasonal. So all those considerations need to be taken into account for a risk-based approach, and that's what the principal process of Farmgate is.
Thanks. Oh, Wayne wants the microphone back. I'll get ready.
An ongoing saga, this one. So I've been told, and I don't know whether the Shire reps can tell me, and Brett might have the answer too, but what I've been told is that the fear of God's been put into local governments about opening up roads because, as Richard's alluded to, you'll be responsible. I find that very difficult to believe, because every one of those roads will have a normal semi-trailer go down it at any time, whenever they feel like it, at any speed they wish to do it at. So the risk's already there. I've been told there's some wording in state government rules or regulation or legislation that local governments would like to see get changed. I don't know what they are, but would take the onus off them then to be able to open up their roads. Now, whether you chaps can tell me that or not, but I know our general manager's alluded to that. The other one I think that, and I just cannot get my head around why it can't be done simply, is that every shire manager knows their roads. They know where the bad bridge is or the causeway that's washed out and can't take a truck, a semi-trailer of any description. And it's been put before in similar forums to this, that open them up. Now, Lachlan Shire opened them up a good number of years ago. Every road in the Shire, I asked a question in this room of their engineer at the time, how come you were able to do that and other shires can't? He said, it's what our ratepayers wanted. They wanted access to move their grain, their stock and everything else on all their roads. To me, there is a simple solution. The assessment, everyone knows their roads, and we've mentioned this before, just put a 50k/h speed limit on all heavy vehicles other than cars and utes and whatever. Because you can't do much more than that anyway, but it puts the onus on everyone there. They know it's a speed limit, it might be 30k/h. But that takes the risk out of it. The Shire have addressed the potential of a risk. Put a speed limit on it. The people that use it know that speed limit and they've got to abide by it. And get the world moving, because, you know, someone said earlier, another couple of years. Well, in another couple of years, a heap of people get fined, they're off route, there's all this sort of stuff happening. And I'll say it now, we know it. There's a lot of off route activity, especially last harvest, because the main arteries were there to get the sub-terminals with a record crop. People aren't going to sit down and do it in little shuttles and wheelbarrows. They get in and they get carriers if they haven't got their own, and they move it, and they take a bit of a risk, to be honest, to getting fined. Now, to me, we can talk about this every year at these forums, but, you know, even if local council get together and say to the government, get rid of that risk factor you were putting on us, we can come up with a solution and get in and make it happen, because road by road, you know, time is limited, staff is very limited, and we're not all going to rush in and say we want our road farm gate accessed. Maybe we should, but it just doesn't happen, and a lot of people aren't even aware of it, to be quite honest. So it's just an overall comment, which I've been involved for a long time, but it is very frustrating. I mean, your local carriers run the gauntlet a lot of the time. And I've said it before to New South Wales Freight and that. Every PBS vehicle, HML, CML vehicle that can get loaded at the seaboard with fertiliser or whatever it might be, as soon as they leave the state road, they are illegal. Sense?
I'm going to let Adrian go first because I've got open access. And then you can come this way.
Yeah, thanks very much for the points. The open access across the Lachlan Shire was well before I was there. We have a very different topography and geological situation to Forbes and Parkes. So I don't want them to be put in the shadow of what Lachlan does, because we have a very different situation. Our roads are a lot longer and a lot straighter, and I disagree with the comment around a triple has the same movement profile as a semi. You drive behind the trailer of a triple, you'll see that trailer move a lot more than what you will a semi. So a triple going around a corner has a lot greater risk than a semi. But yeah, we manage our risks where we can and how we can. And I don't think that putting roads to 50 k's an hour would be a very popular solution. So,
best thing you can ever do.
make everything a lot safer, but you won't get it done. Look what happened when they tried to put the Newell back down to 100. That was very popular at all.
Yep.
As an access, if I had to cut back, if I had to cut my trucks back on an unsealed road back to 50 or 60 k an hour, just to be able to get to that farm and get back out to main network, happy to do it. Happy to do that. Happy not to be there between 7:30 and 8 o'clock or 7:30 and 8:30 when the school bus is there. Happy to work with that, as long as we can get that product out and do it safely.
So just on that, I guess, through the TAP process that Brett mentioned as well, so councils can still put their individual conditions online. So they can put speed restrictions, they can put time restrictions, they can put load restrictions, whatever they can still do. So they will still apply, so they'll still be familiar to the carriers. I think the farm gate access process, Wayne, from a Parkes perspective, and I speak on the Parkes perspective, will help, because that'll enable us to monitor it. I guess probably the elephant in the room Dan just mentioned as well, I kind of disagree with the zone or the school zone blockout. I'll probably get shot for that. But I do challenge, and I've tried to challenge it a number of times with bus operators. It may take them 10 minutes to travel a 15 kilometre section of road or a 10 kilometre section of road. So why are you blocked out for 2 hours?
Even if there was a sign on that road saying school bus has right away, you know, and if the highway patrols are there and see a truck do the wrong thing around a school bus, don't come back there 40 km an hour, ran the school bus in them roads and heavy vehicle, fine them. I'm happy with that. That's, you know, that's what we all do it for, as family.
So that's what we'll be looking at doing, but again, it goes back to that consultation piece. We've got a number of bus operators. Luckily, we've only got, I think it's 3 that run through parks, but we're working with them at the moment. So, and it's around that conversation piece, which everyone in the room knows. It's a larger truck, yes, but it's a smarter truck. And, you know, so what's the benefits of that? And then how can we track it back so that we can start to monitor it and use the TAP process that Brett's talking about, so that then if we see an operator that's not adhering to the conditions, then their access can be revoked.
Richard.
Yeah, I'm going to talk about one elephant in the room too, and that is...
There's a lot of elephants here.
That is the Cowboys. We don't put restrictions on for the good operators. Now, I quite confidently say the local operators are the good ones, the bigger companies are the good ones, but we have to put rules on for the Cowboys. And I think the freight industry needs to get them out, because they're all giving you a bad name. I spend a lot of time on the Newell Highway, and because my hometown is Inverell, and my wife is still back there, so every second or third weekend I drive to Narrabri, and I see some horrendous behaviour from truck drivers, the Cowboys. Now, Wayne, you say let's lower it to 50, it's not going to work. We've had some recent very serious accidents on the Newell Highway, on roadworks, one only about 2 weeks ago, and there's no way in the world you'll ever convince me that that truck was doing 60. It was in a 60 roadwork zone. And he locked up every tyre on that, skidded right across the road down in the tail drain down the other side, after he'd hit a vehicle. Fortunately, it wasn't a fatal. And we've had 2 fatalities just on the Newell Highway in Forbesshire over the last 12 months. So if you're wondering why I'm taking a firm stand on all this stuff, ask the families of those people who died, and you will know. So I'm talking to all the good people in the room, the good drivers and the good operators and the good owners. You need to get rid of the bloody Cowboys. They are giving you a bad name. I see we've got some of New South Wales police here. I'd love to hear from you about what I was just talking about. Would you like to? I'm putting you on the spot, sorry about that, but I'd love to hear from you.
I'll run it down here, Kelvin. Good stepped up today.
Okay, I'm Senior Constable Kelvin Judd from Parks Highway Patrol. We're tasked pretty much daily to that roadworks 20k south of Forbes, and I have made tens of thousands of dollars from trucks speeding through it. I won't lie. They go fast. They're big, and I talk to the road workers down there all the time, and they're scared. They get showered with gravel. Tracy and I went to that one you were referring to. That was a ute, a road train, and a big double were involved in that. We were actually at Condo. It was like one shift that we weren't on that section of road, and we came across, and it was an absolute mess. The road between Forbes and Marsden is just not good enough to be doing anything over about 80 with those. you got a combination of all those months that the water was under the road. Like, what is it now, 12 months or a bit longer that road trains have been able to go on the road there. But I've been down there when we've had water over the roads and we've had the road trains coming through, and I've watched them destroy the road and bring the road with them as their tyres go over it. The tar's been coming up with it. And that it's not good, it's not safe. We've had to then put road workers, we've had to shut the road down, divert them around out to the west or out to the east for some of the traffic, and that because it's an absolute mess. I don't know what the answer is, I'm not an engineer, but we've had requests from Transport to go down there, and at least one of us is rostered. What are we, 6 of us? About 5 or 6. Like pretty much every day we've got a highway car, 20k south of Forbes. And we will never run out of customers. You were just saying about driver fatigue, is that road, even before it started falling apart, it was it's the boring section of road between here and West Wylam. And I remember the first bad crash I went to was one where a driver just fell asleep and went off. And where it's just one of those sections of road where you're in the middle of the state, you're halfway between Melbourne and Brisbane, and you end up nodding, and then bad decisions are made.
Okay, I'm going to have the final question, and I'm going to ask Brett. Just around what promotion or education is happening in terms of promoting Farmgate to industry?
Well, the media release went out when the Minister announced that it was it's now live, but we progressed from the trial. And also through the NHBR, through their social media as well. So we're trying to get it out as broad and as wide as we can. And anybody who has any questions, they can ring us, and where possible, we'll get out and actually talk to councils rather than sort of do it on teams like this.
Awesome. Cool. Okay, you can have one more burning question if you've got it. But it's got to be a quick, Wayne. Or Dan. Okay, cool. Righto. That wraps up heavy vehicle access. So thank you, Brett, from where you are. Here's some certificates for you guys. Thank you. And we're going to roll straight into, oh, you're not Ben Howard. There you go. We're going to roll straight into Safe Work, which is the next presentation. So I'll get Reese and Matt to come up, and they can give you the Safe Work spiel for 10 minutes, and then we get to stretch our legs for 10 minutes. Reese, Matt. Oh, they're fighting about who's going to do the talking.
Thanks, Mel.
Thanks, Chris. I'll go and get your slides.
No worries, thank you.
There you go. Oh, and I'll turn this on so you can...
Oh, that's fine, just push the thing. Yeah, good morning everyone. My name is Matt Isaacson. My colleague over here, Reece Dog, we're both local inspectors from Safe Work New South Wales. We're based out here in the Orange office. The thing our primarily concern is obviously around work health and safety, and that also is quite prevalent in obviously the heavy vehicle industry. So once we just get this slide up, we'll go into a few things. Where we sort of get involved is once those wheels stop and you're in a workplace, that's where we sort of comes under our sort of, I suppose, legislation, I suppose you could say, for the work health and safety of the workers. So recently, Safe Work New South Wales, we've been having a bit of a focus around, we've got some 6 primary industries we focus. 2 we've been looking at are obviously agriculture and transport. And the transport one is where we've been doing a lot of project work. So we go to a lot of workplaces, attend them, and we'll do sort of a bit of a audit, I suppose, or an inspection of the workplace where we can look at systems you might have in place to improve safety for workers and people at the worksite. So the first one there is we've got this program called Safety Around Your Vehicle. We're currently almost at, we've had a couple of phases now. So what it's aimed at is loading, unloading. So we want to look at what in the heavy vehicle yards, the separation of plant and pedestrians or workers.
So as you've seen a lot recently in the news over the last couple of months, we've had, I think, up to 2 fatalities, especially between workers and forklifts. And when we get involved with that, we look at how that came about, and we may even look at taking those companies to task for a possible prosecution, and they're quite big fines, and we go to court, and yeah. But there's also other solutions to that. So a lot of our approach is about advice and guidance to the workplace. So we also want to look at traffic management plans and systems you might have in the workplace to prevent the trucks from reversing unnecessarily in one-way traffic flows. Ancillary tasks such as unloading and loading, working at heights, like getting on the back of the trucks, as far as tying down and untying, where the drivers are involved with the operation of plant. So if the drivers, have they got a designated lunchroom they can go to, or do they stay in the truck? Is the big one we look at is the truck immobilised too, so the brakes are on, they're not, some places use chocks, sometimes the keys are locked away in a certain lockbox. These are sort of things, they're probably more to do with distribution centres in Sydney. You can see there, stage 1 we attended 327 transport operators across New South Wales. So we went to all the big hubs, so we went to Parkes, we've been to Newcastle, a lot around Sydney, all those sort of places, to sort of see what sort of systems you've got in place, and then if we need to improve things or there's any shortcomings, we may issue what's called improvement notices to the workplace to make sure we get those legislative requirements met. As you see there, we've got stage 2 is now live, and that's we're looking at that. That's mainly to do with forklifts, traffic management plans, and immobilisation of trucks and plant. We're just about to go into phase 3 shortly, and that's all to do mainly with livestock and sale yards, and that's going to be launched quite soon. So we've got a couple of resources available. There's a lot of information out there we have on the Safe Work New South Wales website. But over there on the left, we've got a safety around your vehicle glove box guide. We've got plenty on the back, so feel free to grab one. They're a very generic safety guide for truck drivers, and they fit perfectly in the glove box, and it has a lot of things in there. And another thing that a lot of things aren't really considered when it comes to truck driving, we also look at mental health too. That's a biggie, which we sort of have a lot of psychosocial matters. So truck drivers are obviously away from their families sometimes for long periods, especially on the interstate, or they're travelling alone. So there's obviously some resources in there to help sort of address any sort of give them resources to assist and give them the help if they need any replication to that. There's a video there, vehicle immobilisations and animation. That's primarily aimed at, it has a demonstration of a truck driver backing up to a trailer, hooking up, I think it's a dog trailer, but he obviously hasn't immobilised the brakes properly on the prime mover or the tipper, I think it is. And when he hooks up the air, obviously the truck and dog then just roll away, and I think as a result he gets injured or gets run over. So it's about the systems, things, not getting complacent, but just make sure those drivers are aware of what they need to do the job safely. Some other things, so as I said, we do have some project compliance. So we tend to go out to a lot of workplaces, usually unannounced. We'll turn up and we'll go through. We try and work with industry where we can. But when we have, I suppose, like enforcement, blitzers, campaign where we're in a town, we'll usually saturate it with inspectors from all over the state to target those places. But it's meant to be a positive, proactive engagement, but if there's anything we need to address and fix, that's the whole aim of that program. So we've got there, recently the things we've covered off are safety on silos and farms. So in relation to falls, electrical, machine guarding, augers, safety around your vehicle, we've just sort of spoke about that. So stage 1 was last year, stage 2 this year, and we're sort of going to the supply chains, and we've got a big emphasis on obviously forklift enforcement, which we're looking at, obviously with the a lot of workplaces becoming a common trend, unfortunately. We're diverse in a lot of agricultural and transport industries out here in the Central West and across Western Regional New South Wales. We've got the Women Agriculture Lunch, so they're just sessions with Safe Work and industry stakeholders where we meet with the women and then raise any concerns. They can have a chat about anything in relation to agriculture. We've got MSD, so musculoskeletal disorders, so hazardous manual tasks, manual handling. We've got that, and
request for service, that's just when we attend a workplace, when someone makes a complaint of safe work in relation to work health and safety at the workplace, and we'll usually turn up and then we'll go through whatever the allegations may be and try and sort those issues out. That's about it. If anyone's got any questions, I'll leave it at that.
Any questions for Safe Work? You got it. Easy.
No worries. All right, thanks for your time.